All right, everyone, I think we'll go ahead and get started. It is 10 o'clock. So thanks for joining us for our brand new season, I guess we'll call it a season of Nature Tales. Today's our first one. So this will be a 6-week program every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. You can go ahead and log on like you guys did today, and we will read a book and then do kind of a short activity. So if you would want to turn on your video, you're more than welcome to, or you can keep it off. It's up to you. We will do an activity kind of towards the end, which you might want to turn on your audio for later. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, my name is Monica. I guess we should probably introduce ourselves. My name is Monica McIvery. I'm the Wildlife Education Specialist at Nebraska Game and Parks in Lincoln. And then Amanda, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Amanda Philippi, Education Specialist in Parks out in Western Nebraska. So good morning, everyone.
All right, well, Amanda and I were just talking about snow. So I don't know if you have snow where you are, or if you're expecting to get 4 to 8 inches of snow like Amanda is out in Western Nebraska. We have a little snow here, and I know that the other day I saw a lot of animal tracks. My daughter and I went outside and we were looking for tracks, and we saw lots of different types of tracks. Hello, friends. We saw lots of different types of tracks. And so today we're going to talk about animal tracks and maybe what you find in the snow, or sometimes the mud or the sand. So we're going to read a book today called Big Tracks, Little Tracks. And I'm going to go ahead and do this so that people hopefully can see it better. All right. So this book is Big Tracks, Little Tracks. It's kind of a longer book, so bear with me, but then we'll have a fun activity afterwards. All right. What happened? A detective says. Who was here? Where did they go? A detective has many ways to find out. One way is to look for the marks someone or something has made. Fingerprints, footprints, the tracks made by bike tires. Sometimes a detective finds a hair, a button, or a piece of torn clothing. All these things are clues. They help a detective answer these questions. What happened? Who was here? And where did they go? Did you guys know that you can be a detective too? A special kind of detective, a nature detective. Nature detectives find tracks and clues that answer these questions. What animal walked here? Where did it go? What did it do? What did it eat? Where does a nature detective look for these clues? Almost anywhere. In your backyard, in the woods, in a park. You can find tracks in many places, in mud, in snow, in sand, dust, and even on the sidewalk or on the floor. Wet feet or wet muddy paws can make tracks anywhere. Look at the tracks that go to a cat's dish. They were made by an animal that walks on 4 feet. And you can see claw marks in front of the toe marks. A cat has 4 feet and sharp claws, but so does a dog. Who went to the cat's dish? We don't know. Let's look for some clues. Do you guys have cats and dogs at home? If you've ever looked at their feet, how many toes do they have? Do they have 4? Yeah. How many toes do you have? Maybe you can count them. Yeah. All right. Now let's look at some other tracks. The tracks that go to the dog's dish. Did you ever watch a cat walk? A cat walks on 4 feet, but the tracks of his hind feet fall exactly on the tracks of his front feet. So his footprints are one behind the other in a line. They look like footprints of an animal with only 2 feet. A cat pulls his claws in when they walk, so he does not leave any claw marks. All right, the footprints of a fox are in a single line, like a cat's footprints, but they have claw marks, like a dog's. What kind of footprints does a rabbit make? You can make a track that a rabbit has little front paws and big hind feet. The little front paws will make little paw prints, and the big feet will make big tracks. You guys ever seen a rabbit before? Maybe in your backyard? You can see that they have really, really long back feet. And then you know a rabbit has been there. Now, here's a problem for a nature detective. Who went lickety-split across the snow? A rabbit, of course. But which way did he go? Did he go to the tree or did he go away from the tree? It looks like he went towards the tree, doesn't it? Can you guys see the tracks here? You think he went towards the tree? You can see the marks of the front paws ahead of the big hind feet. But do you know how a rabbit jumps? Look at that. When a rabbit jumps, he puts his big hind feet ahead of his other paws. All right. What happened here on a snowy day? You can see the rabbit tracks in the snow. You know which way they are going. All at once, the rabbit tracks are far apart. This means the rabbit began to take big jumps. He was in a hurry. Why do you think he was in a hurry? Did you see those tracks coming out of the woods? Those footprints have claw marks like a dog's, but they are in a single line like the tracks of a cat. Who could have made those tracks? There is only one answer. You guys ever seen this animal before? A fox. Now you know why the rabbit was in a hurry. Did the fox catch the rabbit? Look again at the picture on page 17. Look carefully. I don't know. I see tracks from the fox and tracks from the rabbit. All right, here's some more tracks. It looks like it was a deer and her baby fawn. They came to the river for a drink, but somebody sat down on the muddy riverbank. Can you guys see these tracks? They look like little handprints. So if you guys look at your hands, they look just like that. It looks like somebody made the track on the right too. What do you guys think made that track? Well, a bullfrog came out of the river. He sat on the muddy bank to rest, and only a snake leaves a track with a line. A snake came down to the river, then he slithered into the water. Here are some more tracks in the mud near the river, and there is a little pile of empty shells. They are crayfish shells. The tracks look something like the hands and feet of a baby, but look at those long claws. You guys think made those tracks? Do you think that a raccoon made those tracks? Raccoons like to catch crayfish and eat them. So now you know what happened. A raccoon had dinner here last night. He found crayfish in the river. He ate the crayfish and left the shells in a little pile. We're going to skip the seagull part. You don't have seagulls at the beach. All right, tracks are good clues for nature detectives, but there are other clues too. A nature detective learns to look and listen and smell. She can find clues in a backyard, in the woods, or even a city park. What kind of animals do you guys think you would smell? I can think of one kind of a stinky animal with black and white stripes. Maybe you guys know. And then look at all the different types of tracks that we talked about. We talked about dogs and cats and foxes and deer, rabbits, frogs. We didn't talk about seagulls, sorry. And then also raccoons. And look, all the tracks are different shapes and sizes, and they have different numbers of toes. All right, so you guys can be a nature detective today. And I'm going to see if you guys can help me guess what animals made those tracks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get my nature clues pulled up here. I think my internet's kind of being a little funky, but we'll go with it. All right, so I want you guys to see if you can help me figure out what kind of animals you think made these tracks. All right, do you see the big version, Amanda, or is it the little notes version? Okay.
I can see it hasn't started playing yet. Does that make sense? Like I'm able on the side to see the little, like who it was.
Oh, okay.
I could cheat if I wanted to, is
I
what
know
I'm
you could cheat.
saying, but I
Let
don't.
let me just try that. Do you still see the same thing?
No, it is playing the big this is I like the pine trees.
Yeah, I
They
did that
add
for
to the
you.
background.
You know, it's
Thank
not
you.
all about the prairie on this side of the state, the tall grass prairie. It's about some other things too. So,
All right.
all right. So today, let's see if you guys can maybe help me figure out what animals made these tracks. And I gave you some clues to maybe help along with this. All right. So we actually saw one of these in the book that we read. Let's see if you guys can maybe figure it out. If you see this track here, it has a really long back foot. You guys remember? And this animal gave you some clues. They eat plants. You can find them just about everywhere in Nebraska. And they don't really walk, but they hop instead. Does anyone have a guess on maybe what animal this could be? Anyone thinks that it could be a rabbit? You were right. So these animals have really long back feet, like we saw in our book, and then small, little, tiny front feet. All right, let's see if we can do another one. Ooh, these are a lot different than the one we just saw. So here's a front foot and a back foot. So this animal, he likes to eat other animals. So he's a carnivore. Sometimes you can even find them in your city or your park. And if you have a dog, a pet dog at home, these guys are kind of like distant cousins to your pet dog. I'll give you a second to think about maybe what animal could have left these. If you look, there's also some nails right here. If you said a fox, you are right. So these guys have claws when they step. And a lot of the times you can see their little nails if you're on a trail, and you might even see a fox in your own neighborhood. We have one that comes to our backyard all the time. All right, this one might be kind of tricky. So here's a track, and it doesn't really look like a foot at all. So this animal does not fly, hop, or walk. This animal also eats other animals. And you probably won't ever find one of these animals out in the winter time. So I'll give you guys a couple seconds here to figure out maybe what animal this could be with this weird kind of track mark here. All right, if anyone said a snake, you were correct. So we know that snakes don't have feet, and they don't have feathers, and they don't have wings or arms or legs. So they kind of just slither. And if you guys remember in our book, there was a track, if you guys can see it, there was a track just like this that was down by the mud. So you might absolutely find one of these sometime when you're out in nature. They're kind of hard to find, but if you find one, that's very cool. All right, so here's one that a lot of you might have seen. This is actually, I'll give you a hint, it's from a very large bird. You can find them all over Nebraska. We have quite a few of them. And sometimes you might eat this bird for the holiday of Thanksgiving, if you celebrate Thanksgiving. Give you a second. They have 3 big toes that you'll notice here, and some claws or nails. All right. You guys said turkey. You were right. Good job. We got a couple more. All right. So this one we also saw in our book, and maybe you remember it. See if I can find it really quick without giving it away. So here, just like in our, right here in our book, here's the same track. So this animal, the hints that I gave you is that they are black and gray with stripes and a striped tail. They climb trees really well. And when you look at this animal, it looks like they're wearing a mask. And they almost have hands that look just like ours, just a little smaller. All right, anyone have any guesses on what this one could be? You said, oh, someone said in the chat, raccoons, good. It is a raccoon. Good. These are all over Nebraska, and I bet you guys have probably seen one before. So yeah, if you ever see those little handprints, especially down by like a water source or even in your own backyard, that's a raccoon. All right, a couple more. So this one's a lot different. They don't really have toes per se, really toes. But when you look at this animal, they kind of walk on their tippy toes. So if you guys ever try to walk on your tippy toes, that's how this animal walks. Normally in Nebraska, they're kind of a brown color, and even sometimes they might have a white tail. And the girls, there's girls and boys, and the boys of this kind of group of animal, they have something on their head called antlers. Anyone want to guess what this animal could be? They have kind of a pretty heart-shaped track. Whenever you see them, I get excited to see them. Anyone said oh, we got something in the chat. Ooh, someone said moose. That's a good observation. It's a good guess. There we go. Couldn't think of the word guess. It's actually a deer. So sometimes, and Amanda might talk about this a little bit more, we see moose in Nebraska, but it's very, very rare. And a moose track is going to be big, isn't it, Amanda? Really big?
Yeah, so it's this similar shape of our deer friend. And so a moose was a super good guess. And then we also have elk that also have a similar shape. And some might say pronghorn have a similar shape. So sometimes they're fatter and sometimes they're skinnier. So a moose was like a super good guess. That is a gold star for that person to have guessed that one. But you're right, the size is different. A moose is going to be way bigger. So if we would have given the size, and maybe that's something when we're nature detectives, that's something we have to look out for, right? How big of a track is it? So that's a really good segue to that. Yeah, there are a lot of animals that do have hooves and they're all kind of cousins. They're all related, right? They're all in the same family. So the size is the one way that we tell them apart. They do have the two hooves, but we have to look at how big they are and how long they are too.
Yeah, and like Amanda said, that size is really important. So when you're out being a nature detective, sometimes people even carry like a little ruler with them so they can measure the size, because something like a coyote or a fox even are kind of hard to tell, but one's just a little bit bigger than the other. But same with a deer and a moose or a pronghorn, it's all about the size. So yeah, like Amanda said, size is very important. All right, I think this is our last one, and I think I forgot to put the picture of the animal on here, but we'll all right, so this animal, this is a really weird, it looks like a handprint, but it almost looks like an alien handprint. So this animal is nocturnal, so that means that they come out at night. When they get scared, they will actually play dead, and they have a hairless tail that looks like a rat. And I'm sure almost everyone has seen one of these animals. There's quite a few of them. So we'll give you a second to guess. And I'm pretty sure I did forget to put a photo of this one in here. So it actually is in a possum. So if you've ever, yes, someone put possum on there, good. And yes, you did spell it right. So possums, they have that kind of naked tail on them. They have kind of a really long snout. So these guys have little handprints. This is their front feet. So if you ever see these, you know that a possum has been there. All right, so that's all that I have for today. So I'm going to stop sharing really quick. We were all really good nature detectives today. I don't know what is going on here.
So does anybody have any questions about animal tracks or something they wanted to learn more about? Animal tracks. There are a lot of great things online about them. I know Monica has a lot of cool stuff that they've come up with her division. But wanted to know if there are any quick questions anybody had about animal tracks. or anything before we leave each other for a week? Oh, okay.
Someone
Oh,
said, we have a fox in our yard at night. Why would they come to our yard? Ooh, that's a really good question. It might be food. They might have a den where they live that makes them feel safe. And especially, Jenna, I'm not sure where you guys are from, but if you live in kind of a city area, especially I live in Lincoln, we have a lot of foxes, even in the city. We are in Lincoln. Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of foxes that live in Lincoln. And we're not exactly sure why they're here, but they eat a lot of the food. They might have a den where they've raised their pups, or they could just feel really safe, or they might just really like your yard. So there's a lot of different reasons why they would be in Lincoln. So be in your backyard. It's kind of cool that you have one in your backyard. And then Mary asks, are there any Nebraska birds that hop with one foot? Amanda, you're the bird person here.
that is a really good question. Typically, most of the time they hop on 2 feet. I'm not saying there might not be a bird that likes to hop on 1 foot. Sometimes there are birds that, like this time of year, ducks, if they're standing on ice or something, sometimes they will stand with 1 foot and the other one's tucked under, just to make sure that that one is keeping warm. So it's all about circulation. So sometimes we have birds in Nebraska that stand on 1 foot. Typically, they don't hop on 1 foot, but that doesn't mean that they can't do it. They hop on 2 feet. So that was a really good question. And hopefully I answered it for you. But you can even see little bird tracks. Like Monica skipped over the seagull, but we saw the big turkey track, how it had 3 toes in the front and 1 in the back. Just think way smaller for some of our songbirds, and it looks exactly the same.
Someone asked, what are some other bird tracks we can see in the winter?
Yeah, so you'll be able to see the hopping of our smaller songbirds, our resident songbirds. You also might be able to see some of the like an owl when it comes in and swoops. You might be able to see like 2 tracks, but you can see like its feathers in the snow, so it leaves like a wing print. Is that what we call it? A wing print in the snow? Yeah, so you can see where the owl would come down and get the food, and then you can kind of see where their wings may be also brushed against the snow. So those are some. Like I said, most of them are going to be our smaller songbirds that like to hop on the ground and look for seed, but we might see the chance of some of our bigger birds like an owl or a hawk, and it can come down and swoop in and get that food, and we can see where its wings are. So really good questions.
Yeah, and what's really cool is sometimes you might find like a scene or something. So if you find some tracks and then you find something maybe that has been eaten, like an acorn or something like that, you can kind of talk about being a nature detective and figure out what happened there. Or if you go out into a park or into a state park or in your backyard and you find something, you can talk about what animals have been there. Or even if you find things like scat, if people know what scat is, it's a fancy word for poop. So tracks and scat are the big clues. If you're going to be a nature detective, you can figure out what animal has been there, what they're eating, what they were doing, were they running or chasing something. There's a lot of things that you can figure out by looking at just those few little clues that you would get in your backyard or wherever you go. Yeah. All right, well, if there are no other questions, thanks everyone for joining us today for Animal Tracks. Next week, we were supposed to do, I think, a splash day, but I think we might do something else. So it'll be kind of a surprise for next week. So thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. It's the same link, so you guys don't have to worry about doing anything else. So we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, guys.